board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Present. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Here. Alderman Vollmer.
I'm here.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sonnier.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Here.
President Green.
Present.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Boyd. 11 present. You have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in opening prayer and reflection by Pastor Dr. Monique Green, Board President of St. Louis Survivors Legal Network, in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Good morning, and thank you for this invitation. I'd like to clarify, it's just Pastor Green, not doctor. I don't want to take credit where credit is not due. So this morning, I'd like to start off with sharing a devotional. I do devotional with a 26-year-old daughter. I am a survivor of domestic violence, so you will understand that tie-in. But what I'd like to just share with you very briefly is the devotional this morning had the appropriate title, A Legacy of Consequence. How appropriate even for the work you do as council people and representatives in the community. A legacy of consequence. One of the most foundational facts of life is that community is essential. We cannot survive or even exist in the first place without human interaction. As much as our individualistic society would prefer to deny it, people are always dependent on one another in some way, and because of this, it is inevitable that the character, priorities, and copious attributes of one person has an effect on someone else. Would you agree with that? Absolutely. Amen. Amen. So what I'd like to do in honor of Domestic Violence Month is first state that domestic violence is any attempt for someone to control your life. And it is not just a problem in the United States, it's a world problem. And biblically, we know that it's been a problem for women since the very beginning of time. And that even Jesus did certain things to ensure that women, children, and widows had various rights. So in recognition of National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, it is time to recognize victims and raise awareness about the devastating impact of domestic violence. Not only does domestic violence impact the individual, but the family and the community. As a survivor, I'd like to share just a few excerpts of my own story, and I encourage you to participate. Think about the effects on the community, on children, on how we live in this country as I share a few bits of my story. Okay. I currently serve as an executive pastor of Living the Word Church, and I'm also a business consultant. Prior to starting my consulting business, I was a co-founder and CEO of a biotech company, and I served in a variety of corporate positions. I was about 30 years old when I first experienced abuse. I was married, albeit 3 years later that I had to draw the conclusion that it was abuse. The abuser was my then ex-husband, and the abuse only ceased when I was able to separate myself and my children from my ex-husband. During that 15-year period, the abuse progressed. So abuse ranges from subtleties of language to physical, sexual, and financial abuse. I felt the entire range of emotions: abuse, shock, disbelief, denial, fear, shame, guilt, and poor self-esteem. This relationship had a negative impact not only on my family, my friends, my career, my financial situation, and my children. Today, I have a daughter that's 26 years old who's given me permission, just as I drove up, to share with you that she's been in counseling for 16 years because of the abuse that she saw in the household. Not only did it impact my children, but it impacted relationships again with family, friends, and my career. I read books on marriage. I sought the church. I sought attorneys, a number of resources, and things simply were not satisfied. I called the police departments, but again, the police, being short of resources, were not always able to respond. The court system failed me. During my divorce, my case was held in St. Louis County. I had a case with 2 judges, 3 family of court attorneys, 3 guardian ad litems, 3 business attorneys, 1 attorney in civil court in Missouri, the Missouri Supreme Court, 1 judge in St. Clair County, and 1 attorney in St. Clair County. My legal bills for the entire process were in excess of $300,000. Whether it be out of ignorance of what abuse really means, the statute of limitations expired on my order of protection, and my abuse hearing was never heard in court. With better legal representation and understanding how the court system works, perhaps, but I do believe I could have avoided crushing debt, and perhaps the impact on family, friends, and community would have been different. So I speak to you today because I also had a company and a number of employees lost their jobs. So abuse is something that impacts every aspect of life, and it will leave a legacy of consequences. So I thank you that today that you are here, and that you in your roles as public servants will continue to recognize this and help individuals move forward from this system. As someone who had resources at the time, can you only imagine what the impact is for someone who does not have resources? So I am currently the board president of St. Louis Legal Survivors Support Network, and a former judge of St. Louis County, Mike Burton, felt an inner calling to step down from the bench and start this organization. To date, we have 120 volunteer attorneys, and we've helped in the span of 4 months over 80 women who have been in an abusive situation. And it is our goal to work with St. Louis City to also bring the program to St. Louis City. So if I can leave you with anything around domestic violence today, remember, we don't want to leave that legacy of consequence, and you in this room can change that. So now I'd like to pray for your meeting. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come to you humbly this day. We say thank you. Thank you that we have an opportunity to be public servants. Thank you, Lord, that each of us has a role to play. Father, first of all, we ask that every person in this room and every person within the sound of my voice come to know you as Lord and Savior. For Jesus came to give life and life more abundantly. But he did not leave us alone. He's given us the opportunity to have the Holy Spirit, a helper, with us at all times. So as we move forward doing the work of the kingdom, as we are an extension of the work that Jesus has done, lead and guide us, Father. Help us to lead with love. Help us to move forward and to help those who cannot help themselves. For Father, you tell us in your word that when we help the poor, it is an extension of you. Father, thank you. You tell us when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So Father, I pray a blessing over each council person sitting here today, that you lead and guide them, and that every decision that they make, they think about the right decision and how it helps move civilization and this city forward. Father, I pray protection over anyone and everyone that has experienced domestic violence. Father, you call it a sin. No one has authority to destroy what you have created in your likeness and your image. So, Father, I thank you that as they move forward making decisions that impact the people of this city, that they are only led and guided by those decisions that edify you and the kingdom. I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
This time, we are going to dispense with the regular order of business to take up the courtesy resolution calendar. Alderwoman from the 6th, you are recognized on Resolution 120, and if we could invite our domestic violence advocates up to the front as well.
Madam Clerk, can we please read the resolution?
Resolution 120, recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic violence is a continuing and devastating epidemic in the United States, with data from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence showing that over 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime. Whereas in 1987, the toll-free National Domestic Violence Hotline was created 2 years later. In 1989, the U.S. Congress passed Public Law 101 through 112, designating the month of October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a physical, emotional, economic, and financial abuse committed by one intimate partner to another, in person or over the internet, as an abuse of a dynamic of power and intimate relationships, and overwhelmingly as measure of control. Whereas domestic abuse survivors sustain acute physical trauma, beatings, broken bones, rape trauma, and concussions, as well as chronic physical trauma, a severely increased risk of high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, stress-related illness. Whereas compared to the average person, domestic violence survivors become 2 times more likely to develop depression, 3 times more likely to develop PTSD, 4 times more likely to commit suicide, and 6 times more likely to develop substance use disorder. Whereas domestic violence and economic surge, with 21 through 60% of victims losing their jobs due to reasons stemming from abuse, 38% of victims becoming homeless at some point in their lives. Whereas domestic violence survivors escaping the abusive situation they face often find themselves needing support from those domestic violence shelters, transitional housing, and support groups, the kindly heroic provided by organizations like Women's Safe House in St. Louis. Whereas children in the household often shares physical and psychological drama of domestic violence, and in addition have their education and psychological development impacted. Whereas Black, Latinos, Native Americans people are more likely to experience domestic violence as well as LGBTA and especially trans people. Whereas the Missouri-based Rape and Abuse Crisis Services reported this year that nearly 80% of the survivor it sees have never interacted with the police on their abuse. For centuries, domestic violence was regarded as private family matter, and only the past several decades there has been a concerted effort to train officers on best response, believe survivors, and prosecute abusers. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Honorable Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to recognize October 1st to October 31st as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, 2023. We further direct the Clerk of the Board of Aldermen to spread a copy of this resolution of the minutes of these proceedings, to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented at a time and place deemed by the sponsor. Introduce this 6th day of October 2023, the Honorable Daniela Velasquez, Alderwoman of the 6th Ward, and the following co-sponsors: Ann Schweitzer, Alderwoman of the 1st Ward; Alderman Shane Cone, 3rd Ward Alderman; Honorable Brett Narayan, Alderman of the 4th Ward; the Honorable Tom Oldenburg, Alderman of the 2nd Ward, the Honorable Alisha Sonnier, Alderwoman of the 7th Ward, the Honorable Michael Browning, Alderman of the 9th Ward, the Honorable Shameem Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman of the 10th Ward, the Honorable Laura Keys, Alderwoman of the 11th Ward, the Honorable Pamela Boyd, Alderwoman of the 13th Ward, and the Honorable Rasheen Aldridge, Alderman of the 14th Ward. Adopted this 6th day of October 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I also want to thank Pastor Monique Green for your words today and sharing your experience. As you all heard in this resolution and by the fact of the amount of people standing here today, domestic violence is an issue that many people face from all different walks of life. And as you said, we all have a role to play. I briefly worked at a domestic violence shelter in my younger years, and answering the hotlines and being in court to help people with their ex partes really gave me a different perspective, but it also showed me that while we want the law to work, the law does not always usually work in the favor of victims, and we have to have additional support to help people. So I want to just recognize a constituent of mine and the executive director of the Women's Safe House, Marianne Owens.
I am honored to be here today to represent the Women's Safe House. We are the oldest and largest domestic violence shelter in the greater St. Louis area. We are able to house 60 women and children at any time, and we are full every day and turning people away. The need is so great in our community, but most importantly, I love being honored by our Alder board here. I want everybody in St. Louis to know there is help for women. So many women do not know where to go or what to do. Spread the word. We're here. We're here to help them with all the services they need. And I just have to say a shout out. I'm so excited. We will be starting construction on a pet safe house in our back of our shelter, because there is nowhere in Missouri near here in the greater St. Louis area that you can bring your family pet, and no one wants to leave that emotional support at home. So they will be able to bring their pets to the Women's Safe House starting in January, because we will have a kennel to house pets, and they'll be able to have them in their room, enjoy them. So thank you for this honor. Please, if you have, spread the word in your wards that we are there to help the women and children. And thank you so much, Daniela, and I'm proud to be in the 6th Ward. Thank you so much. And thank you, Megan.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll see you guys on the 12th.
You definitely will. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 13th.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to thank you all for doing this. It's interesting because I've been so emotional this morning. And it's like every time we do this, I become more emotional, and it brings back not good memories. So I want the city to understand, when you see women and people think it's just women that are abused, it's men. And so I've experienced a woman that was literally abusing a man and bragging on it to the point where she killed him, and he died in our front yard, and she didn't think anything about it. But when I was abused, they didn't have this. So I was a single mom because I was married to an abuser. I never told my family, I never told anybody that I was being abused. And so that was a secret that I kept for so long. And I want people to understand, this is nothing to joke about. It's as bad as being a drug addict and you can't say anything. And so when you're in an abusive relationship, and it was interesting because I talked to my kids about it and explained to them what had happened to me. And so it was physical abuse, sexual abuse, and mental abuse that I went through. And it took another man to say, "You don't think much of yourself, do you?" And I said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because the way you carry yourself." Because I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Men approach you and you're supposed to give in and you don't say nothing, and that's okay. And so I raised my girls to not be like that. I told them to be very vocal. And you make sure if any person, man or woman, comes to you inappropriate, you let me know, because I will take care of it. I don't care about going to jail because I'm going to protect mine. But I didn't have that then because I didn't know enough to say I've been abused. I thought it was my fault. And most of them can relate to what I'm saying. You say, well, I should have did this. Or maybe if I hadn't have said that, they wouldn't have been upset. I said, so I had to learn for myself that I didn't do anything wrong. And thank God for my kids and my husband that I have now, because I tell people that's my angel, because he has dealt with me for over 40 years and he understood that I was abused and he helped me through it, and my kids helped me. So if you are abused, please, please talk to somebody. Because if you don't, that's something that you will bottle up and you will hate yourself for the rest of your life. So thank you for doing this again. We need to get more centers like that to help people. Annie Malone is a part of that process because they get those babies when those parents are abused, and they're the ones in the courtroom fighting for those kids to keep them abusers from getting those kids again. So let's keep fighting, because these men and women need that support to get us through this. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam President, members of the board, and thank you, Alderwoman Boyd, for sharing your story today, even all this time later where you're able to talk about it is what I have learned most from working with the Diamond Diva Empowerment Foundation here is about the survivors and making sure that we acknowledge and stand up and support the survivors so they remain in survivor mode, right? And in a survivor mindset. So what we are doing here today is what they call shattering the silence. Because we know that a lot of these acts and this behavior happens in the dark behind closets. And here, Alderwoman Boyd shared that she didn't talk about it for so many years. And with a breakthrough like this, we have to make sure that we share that again. Please, if you are experiencing this right now, someone you never know who could be watching this or listening to this, or who you could share this with, let them know that there is help. There is help, and in many different spaces. So yeah, we acknowledge things for a month, but a lot of these organizations, as a matter of fact, all of these organizations up here that I want to make sure we acknowledge by name, they do this 365, 12 months a year. So we'll give it up for this awareness month, but I want to make sure we know that these organizations need support year round, because people don't only have to deal with domestic violence during October. So thank you, and with that, I would like to ask if we can pass this resolution in bank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we pass Resolution 120 in bank. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now that it has been made in bank, that means that every single member of this Board of Aldermen has signed on in support of this resolution, because we all recognize the importance of domestic violence awareness and breaking the silence and breaking the stigma. Is there any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, I want to thank the sponsor and the entire board for sponsoring this resolution. My heart breaks for the Alderwoman from the 13th. He's a friend of mine. From that perspective, I want to speak to what you can do if you're not a person who has been abused, but you see people who you think are being abused, because you don't have to wait until they report it. You can encourage and support them. I worked at a certain job, and we thought a female friend of ours or employee was being abused, and we kept asking her, and she kept denying it, and we saw bruises and we saw other signs that it was happening, and you can't make people admit it if they don't want to, but we kept supporting her and encouraging her and bringing information to her about what she can do, and finally it got out of hand and she had to admit it. But she knew she had a network of people that were supporting her, and we were not judging her. Oftentimes in past times, people judged women, especially, I can't speak to me. I know there's some men that's been abused, but they judged women. If you were married, they thought it was all right to hit the spouse. In fact, if you look at old TV, they show women being spanked and everything else. That's sexism, okay? That is sexism. You never see a man getting spanked. And I like John Wayne movies, but if you watch some of his movies, he spanks his wives. And that's because women are getting out of their place. And so that was taken on for many centuries and many decades more. They took that on as that was okay. And so women were told to be quiet, kind of like children almost, and to stay in their place. So if you have a friend that is being abused, or you think that they are, there's domestic abuse, be a friend. And sometimes it's hard to get in people's business and ask them about, you know, are you sure? You sure? But they need that. They need for you to speak up to them, and they need you then to be there when they finally are ready. If they want to go to a shelter, have information ready where you can take them to a shelter, because you can be the difference as long as they know there's a safe place. And yes, there's going to be an angry spouse sometimes, and that's too bad for that, him or her, if she is the one that's abusing. But as a person who's not been abused, it is also our responsibility to support those that are, if we spot the signs. And you most of the times you can see them. Sometimes you can't, but most of the times you can see that people are being abused, and get information. And if you can't do anything else, give it to them on their desk or in their mailbox, or when you see them and you're alone, give them that information, because that can make the difference of them making a decision. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
I just wanted to thank, Alderwoman from the 13th had to step out, but thank her for bringing this up, and thank Diamond Divas, and thank all of you all, and just emphasize that there's no class on your ability to be abused. People of all economic backgrounds, there's no education level, there's no gender, there's no sexual orientation, and a lot of times abuse, sometimes you don't see marks, you don't see bruises, and abusers, one of the best things that they do is they actually build really good relationships with communities, and they're known for like being someone who's well known and associated, so that should a victim would speak up, everybody kind of looks and says, well, no, we don't expect that from them. So I just really wanted to thank you all for, speaking about this issue. I had a childhood that was plagued by the witnessing of abuse. So I'm just glad to see that these conversations are happening, and that we're also talking about, like Alderwoman Boyd said, that it's physical, it's mental, it's financial, it's sexual, it's isolating you, keeping you away from your friends and family, trying to control where you go, when you go, needing to know your every move. Sometimes it doesn't look the way that, it doesn't show up physically, but there's so many ways. So I'm just glad that this is another issue that we've rallied around together as a board.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Also want to echo a lot of the comments that my colleagues said, and thank you to the board as we embank this resolution. So now every member of the Board of Aldermen signed on to this, because this is an important issue. Thank Alderwoman Pam Boyd for sharing her story. It's important to share and speak about these issues, and to understand that it is okay to speak out. As the Alderwoman from the Power to 10 said, it's time to shatter the silence and stop the violence. And I want to thank each organization that is up here today. I've had the honor over the last several years to work very closely with the Diamond Diva organization, and appreciate all the work that y'all do. You guys have helped so many men and women come out of the closet and to be able to talk about an issue that sometimes isn't easy to talk about. Especially in a Black household, we always say, keep that in the house, and keep the business that happened in the household. But it's time to change that stigma. It's time to change those generational curses that have been going on for a long time. And I just appreciate all the advocacy that you guys do on the local level, from the state level just this year, making October 21st Domestic Violence Day, understanding that it is national, but you guys worked in Jeff City to make it a day, and look forward to being at the rally on September 21st, October 21st at 10 a.m. It's every third Saturday of October, the rally that y'all hold in the Grove, and ready to be the chant leader like I was last year to, hold it down for y'all. So thank y'all so much.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? I really want to thank you for being here today. As many of you know, I'm also one of the 1 in 4 people who is a survivor of domestic violence. And I was young. It was at a time when I was so embarrassed and ashamed by what was happening that I would not even tell my closest friends and family. And it got to a point where I was so beat down, I quit my job. I was financially dependent on him. And I still did not feel like I could tell anybody because I saw it as a moral failing of my own. And I finally one day realized something had to change, and I made a therapy appointment. At the end of that, one of the things the therapist said to me was, "Do you have anybody that you can tell about this?" And I said, "Yes, I have a good friend." And I remember getting out of that therapy appointment, sitting in the parking lot, calling my friend Diana, telling her what happened, and her response to me was, "I know." And I was so afraid. She said she was so afraid that I would push her away if she said the things that she felt like I needed to hear. But at that moment, that friend said to me, "Go get your things. You are coming to my house. You are staying here." And I found that I had a whole support network that I was afraid to acknowledge in the first place. And that instead of being met with judgment, I was met with love and sympathy, and parents who helped me get out of that situation, and was lucky enough to have parents with the ability to provide some financial support so I could get out of that situation. But it took years to get there. And so I want people to know that abuse can happen to anyone. It's not a failing on your part. And I also wanted to speak to the power of therapy. You know, there's I think a lot of stigma around seeking help and seeking therapy. And not only did that therapist then help me get out of that situation, ongoing therapy helped me recover from that situation and heal from that situation and be able to develop healthier relationships later in life. And so I wasn't planning on doing this today. But I really want to thank all of the advocates that are out there, because there are so many folks that are suffering in silence who do not, and as a society, we still continue to stigmatize this to a point that too few are willing to seek out help or even tell their closest confidants what's happening behind closed doors. So thank you for all of the work that you do, and you have a board of aldermen that sincerely supports you. And with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the courtesy resolution calendar.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by the alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the alderman from the 3rd, that we approve the courtesy resolution calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Always a process. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized, introduction of honored guests. Are there any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. My first introduction of honored guests is going to be, Alderwoman from 13 said first. There's a list coming, but the sheriff for the city of St. Louis, mighty 14th resident, Sheriff Vernon Betts. I was going to also have introduction of guests as the Diamond Divas organization, but that we've heard a lot of the great work that they do in Brandy and Eddie and all the great warriors that are doing the great work to, like we say, shatter the silence and stop the violence. And then last, they're not in the room, but my guests are all the unhoused activists and residents that live in the city of St. Louis that continue to fight for quality of life and quality housing. And those are my guests for the evening. So thank you, Madam President.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 13th.
My honored guest today, and he's probably not listening, so you all have to tell him, because my husband is not a YouTube person or anything. So my husband, who is my hero, and so he has kept me stable and kept me solid. So Nathan Boyd, I love you very much, and thank you for being who you are.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. My special guest is Jesse Matthews. He's over there on the computer. He attended a press conference we had earlier this week where we talked about the Unhoused Bill of Rights and some other issues. It's just someone who I've gained a tremendous amount of respect for showing up in these spaces, for making sure that his experience are here and that they're heard, and also all the other unhoused activists and folks doing work around, and service providers who are doing work around this important issue.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, September 29th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, September 29th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we approve the minutes from Friday, September 29th, 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the Google Drive for your review. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for reappointment to the Board of Adjustment. George Hitt. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' reappointment of George Hitt to the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve. Let me see. I think I don't want to. Yes, I move that we send the appointment of George Hitt to the Board of Adjustments to the Legislation Committee.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we send the reappointment of George Hitt to the Board of Adjustment to the Legislation Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Soccer Stadium Community Improvement District. The appointment of Paul R. Orr. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized on Mayor Jones' reappointment of Paul Orr to the Soccer Stadium Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to approve Paul Orr to the Soccer Stadium Community Improvement District.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we approve Mayor Jones's appointment to the Soccer Stadium Community Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Tower Grove South Concerned Citizen Special Business District. The reappointment of Carrie Collier, the reappointment of Renee Vega, the appointment of Jim Mayer, and the appointment of Julian Collett. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderwoman from the 6th, you are recognized on Mayor Jones' appointments to the Tower Grove South Concerned Citizens Special Business District.
I move that we approve the appointments of Carrie Kohler, Renee Vega, Jim Mayer, and Julian Colliode.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we approve the mayor's appointments to the Tower Grove South Concerned Citizens Special Business District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Seeing none, we will dispense with line items 8, 9, 10, 11. Alderman from the 2nd, you are recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill 132 for first reading.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill 132.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 2nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill number 132. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderman Oldenburg. Aye. Alderman Cone. Aye. Alderman Narayan. Aye. Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sonnier.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 2nd. Madam Clerk, if you could please place Board Bill 132 at the end of the first reading of board bills.
So noted.
First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 122, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in the Selber Court from Goodfellow Boulevard west to its terminus in City of St. Louis, as hereinafter described in accordance with the Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 124, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance establishing a two-way stop site at the intersection of Brannon Avenue and Lindenwood Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling north and southbound on Brannon Avenue at the intersection of Brannon Avenue and Lindenwood Avenue, contained an emergency clause. Board Bill 125, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic at various locations in the 5th Ward. Board Bill 126, sponsored by Alderwoman Sonnier, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 67918, ordinance number 61415, and section 19 of ordinance number 71393, amending ordinance number 67075, enumerating a list of protections of guaranteed under a Bill of Rights for homeless, and establishing a safe camping area program with the severability and emergency clause. Board Bill 127, sponsored by Alderwoman Sonnier, an ordinance revising and amending portions of ordinance number 70798 pertaining to the International Property Maintenance Code to clarify processes pertaining to special residential use zoning. Board Bill 128, sponsored by Alderwoman Sonnier, an ordinance with regulations recommended by the Planning Commission pertaining to the zoning code, Title 26, amending parts of Chapter 26 by removing certain uses pertaining to special residential uses containing the severability and emergency clause. Board Bill 129, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated August 23rd, 2023 for the 400 South 14th Street area in the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 130, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 3rd, 2022 for Locust Street, North 6th Street, Pine Street, North 7th Street area in the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 131, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the mayor and the comptroller to enter into and execute agreements with the HUD for the receipt of 2024 Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, Home Investment Partnership's American Rescue Plan Program, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Housing Opportunities for Person with AIDS Fund, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 132, sponsored by Alderman Oldenburg, an ordinance authorizing the police commissioner on behalf of the city of St. Louis to enter into and execute a grant agreement with the United States Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service to fund the purchase of equipment and software for the 911 call center upgrade, appropriating funds therefore, and authorizing the police commissioner or his designee to enter into contracts and expend the funds to extent received, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. That's the extent of first reading of board bills.
Please send Board Bill 132 to the Public Safety Committee.
So noted.
Reference to committee.
To the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee, Board Bill 122, 124, and 125. To the HUD's Committee, Board Bill 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, and 131. And to Public Safety, Board Bill 132. That's the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading and report of standing committees.
The following board bills were reported out of Transportation and Commerce with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 33, Committee Sub, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, President Green, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Sonnier, and Alderman Browning. An ordinance requiring a permit to operate a short-term rental containing the severability clause. Board Bill 34, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, President Green, Alderwoman Velazquez, and Alderwoman Sonnier. An ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission of the City of St. Louis pertaining to the zoning code of the City of St. Louis, enacting a new chapter 26.76 on the subject of short-term rental with definitions and establishing short-term rentals as permitted use in all zones of the City of St. Louis. The following board bills were reported out of Public Infrastructure and the Utilities Committee. Board Bill 100 as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, pursuant to ordinance number 70333 as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic at 60 locations within the city's Soulard neighborhood. Board Bill 102 Committee Sub, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, pursuant to ordinance number 70333 as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on certain blocks in the 14th Ward. Board Bill 118, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance establishing a three-way stop site at the intersection of Cara Avenue and Persian Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling north and southbound on Cara Avenue and all traffic traveling east and westbound on Persian Avenue at the intersection of Cara Avenue and Persian Avenue, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 121, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on the various blocks in the First Ward. The following board bills were reported out of Health and Human Development with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 98, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the Department of Health to accept a 5-year opioid data to action grant award up to $103,292 from the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 99, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the Department of Health to accept a public health infrastructure grant award up to $621,818 from the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
Dispense with line item 15. Board bills for perfection consent.
We have none.
Dispense with line item 16A. Board bills for perfection.
We have none.
Please dispense with line item 16B. Report of engrossment.
Board Bill 89, 80, 92, and 94.
Third reading and final passage of board bills consent.
Board Bill 89, 80, 92, and 94.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adopt the third reading and final passage of board bills on the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the, I'm sorry. Moving too fast on the agenda. I move that we adopt the third reading and final passage for consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt the board bills on the third reading and final passage consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sonnier.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion for the Alderwoman from the 10th to have third read and finally pass the aforementioned bills. Third reading and final passage of board bills.
We have none.
Please dispense with line item 18B. Report of the finally passed and signed by the President.
Board Bill 89, 80, 92, and 94.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix her signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading of resolutions in reference to committee.
We have none.
Second reading of resolutions, committee reports and adoptions.
Report from the Personnel Committee.
I will entertain a motion that the entire discussion or portions of the discussion of the report of the Personnel and Administration Committee of the Board of Aldermen be closed to the public under the provisions of 610.0213 and 610.022 of the Missouri Revised Codes in order to permit the members of the Board of Aldermen to discuss matters relating to the hiring, firing, disciplining, promoting of employees of the Board of Aldermen. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sonnier. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
At this time, I would ask that all people who are not members of the Board of Aldermen please exit the chambers, and if STL TV could please put us in closed session. And we are back. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, October 9th, personnel will have a meeting at 12:30 p.m. via webinar. Tuesday, October 10th, HUDs will have a webinar at 11 a.m. Wednesday, October 11th, Public Infrastructure and Utilities will have a webinar at 3:30 p.m. Thursday, October 12th, Health and Human Development will have a webinar at 9 a.m. Friday, October 13th, 2023, full board meeting at 1200 Market in the Kennedy Room at 10 a.m. That's the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Madam President. We would like to announce we'll have a Legislation and Rules Committee hearing Tuesday, October 10th, 2 p.m. via webinar.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to let everyone know that the RAM settlement survey has been extended to October 20th. So there's still time to put in your responses, to let your communities know that it has been extended to October 20th.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 9th.
Just want to invite everybody out to Grove Fest this weekend, October 7th, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., just the whole Manchester Strip. So please come and enjoy yourself. The theme is hip hop, so come enjoy yourselves.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 6th.
Just want to announce that the Shaw Art Fair is happening this weekend, so please come by and partake.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. Is that my camera? I would like to. I would like to announce tomorrow is the now annual Dutchtown Chili Cook-Off. It takes place on the 4200 block of Louisiana. I will be handing over my crown. I won last year's competition, although afterwards there was a little bit of debate over the election process, which we all love. So I invite everyone to attend. It's always a wonderful afternoon with neighbors and super fun and delicious chilies, I might add, even though I'm a little bit biased since I'm the current title holder. But that's tomorrow afternoon, 4200 block of Louisiana. I would also like to call a Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting, Madam Clerk, for Wednesday at 9 a.m. next week to hear several bills that are currently pending before the committee.
Alderman from the 14th, and then Alderwoman from the 11th. I'm going straight down the line.
Wait on.
Alderwoman from the 11th then, or 14th, whichever one you can duke it out.
She can go and sit on down. Thank you, Alderwoman, or thank you, Madam President, members of the board. First and foremost, this weekend, it is an annual Sister Strut that is happening downtown. So please come on out. This is, it's been happening for several years now. This is a 14th annual event. It will be happening, like I say, this weekend downtown. So please come on out and spread the word, tell people to come out. As well as I want to thank every resident last night that came out to the 11th and 14th Ward Town Hall in collaboration with the JVL Neighborhood Association and the St. Louis Place Neighborhood Association as we discuss future development that is taking place in both our communities, and appreciate the support and partnership from the Alderwoman from the elevated 11th Ward. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Finally. Thank you so much, Madam President. Madam President, I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence with the passing of truly a St. Louis icon, whom I've experienced in professional areas as well as personal, to be truly a man of honor, and always having just been just a great all-around guy. And all of the great things that he's done for our city. Austin Lane passed recently, so I'd like to ask for a moment of silence.
You will please bow your heads for a moment of silence.
Thank you so much. I would also like to echo the sentiments of the Alderman of the 14th Ward. Last night's meeting was very, very nice, and we'd like to again extend our thanks to all of the residents who came out to lend their voices. And please fill out that survey for the RAM settlement. Those applications were, or well, forms rather, or surveys were handed out last night, but they can be accessed online. So we do want to make sure that we get that important data and feedback back from everybody in our city so that your voices can be heard. Thank you so much.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Madam President. After you've enjoyed all your art and you've strutted and you've hip-hopped and you've processed your beans, we are having Italian Heritage Festival this Sunday on the Hill. The parade starts at noon at Shaw School and ends up at Barra Park with an Italian festa. So please come by and make sure you process your beans. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. All members were present this morning.
Good job. You can dispense with line item 25. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we adjourn until Friday, October 13th, 2023 at 1200 Market Street in the Kennedy hearing room.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we adjourn until Friday, October 13th, 2023 at 1200 Market in the Kennedy room. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.